There is a mobile game on the market right now that is quietly, or perhaps not so quietly, if you have seen the 3D billboards in Times Square, generating an absurd amount of money every month. It is called Love and Deepspace. And on the surface, from those ads, it looks like just another dating game, maybe even a cringe one, as 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗆𝗵𝗁 put it.
I'm gonna admit it, I once thought the same. I used to think the ads for this game were super cringe.
Another Otome game as they are called. But this game is pulling in financial numbers that rival some of the biggest gacha titans in the world. And it's doing it by tapping into a market, a demographic that most of the mainstream industry has, for years, completely ignored. This level of success is not an accident, it is not a fluke. It is one of the most calculated and well-executed product launches we have seen in this space in a very long time. So today we're not doing a review, we're not going to talk about whether the characters are hot, although after watching many people try out the game, that is clearly a factor. We're going to break down the how, the mechanics, the psychology, and the brilliance, cold strategy that turned a niche romance game, a game about dating fictional men, into a $650 million anomaly. If you enjoyed this kind of analysis, a like on the video and a subscribe on the channel is always appreciated. It is a simple, free way to let me know you find this sort of breakdown useful. Alright, to really understand what is going on with Love and Deepspace, we have to start with the money. And the numbers here, well, they're not just good, they are strange. They are an anomaly. It is something that just doesn't fit the normal pattern. In its debut month alone, the game pulled in around $84 million. That is not just a successful launch, that is the kind of number that makes everyone in the industry, even the people who make Genshin, sit up and pay attention. In its first year and a half, it has grossed over $650 million. And with a B, billion, likely on the horizon. And now when you hear this, your first thought might be, well, okay, that is a lot of money for a dating game. But that is the wrong way to look at it. This performance, it goes far beyond the Otome genre. This is the part that shocked creators like Winda Basudara. He went into it because of the data. This isn't a niche game's performance. It positions Love and Deepspace as a mainstream gacha behemoth, a monster, a giant. It is on par with the industry titans, the big name games that dominate the market. To really put this in perspective, let's look at the developer's last successful game, Mr. Love, Queen's Choice. That game made about $202 million. That is a massive success by any standard. I mean, look at my wallet. There is no $1 million there yet, but it took 7 years to make that much. Love and Deepspace surpassed that entire 7-year lifetime revenue in less than 1 year. It laps its own successful predecessor. It is not even a fair fight. So $650 million doesn't just happen. This wasn't a fluke. It wasn't good marketing or getting lucky. This was the result of a very high risk, 4+ year, very calculated and perfectly executed strategy. Their aim wasn't to make a better dating game. They built something else entirely. And that starts with the game's core identity. The developer, Paper Games, wasn't interested in just evolving the Otome genre. They didn't just make it prettier, they fused it. They smashed it together with something else entirely. See, they were solving a core problem in the market. For years, there were two very separate, very different groups. First, you had the traditional Otome market. These are your story-driven romance games. They made good money, but they were a niche, a small specific group of fans, and almost all of these games were 2D, just still images and text. And then you had the other side, the mobile ARPG market. You think like Genshin Impact, right? This is where the billions of dollars are. It's one of the most lucrative markets in the world. Or in other words, it makes the most money. But that market is overwhelmingly focused on waifu collecting female characters for, you know, reasons. This left the giant obvious hole, the husbando collecting audience, players who want to collect male characters, and really the broader female gaze player base. They were critically undeserved. Undeserved in this case is just a business way of saying nobody was making a high quality AAA level 3D game for these people. If you wanted to collect high quality 3D men, your options were, well, Genshin scraps, I guess. Like every year there's like what, 2 or 3 men, and that's being generous. And really, I mean, it was a wide open starving market. So Love and Deepspace's solution was to create what is called a blue ocean. This is a business term again, because a red ocean is full of sharks, right? All of the competitors fighting over the same fish. A blue ocean is, you know, empty. You're the only one there. They built the first 3D Otome action RPG, an action role-playing game. This hybrid, this mix, is the entire foundation of their success. It built a bridge and started poaching players from both of those very different communities. communities. Poaching means stealing, by the way, and we saw this happen in real time. We saw it validated or proven by the reactions from all of those content creators that play the game on stream. You had mainstream game players, he streams it, expecting a simple dating sim, and then suddenly he's in a boss fight, yelling, "This is Final Fantasy."
Anjir, keren banget. Ini mah Final Fantasy type of shit, man.
They must be hiding from us.
This is Final Fantasy type of shit, bro.
Because he was so shocked that it actually has gameplay. And at the exact same time, you had traditional story and romance players like 𝗖𝗍𝗆𝗆. She admits she was cringing at the ads, but got hooked anyway, falling into the addiction hole because of the deep immersion and the morally gray angst of the characters. So it's not one thing, it is two things welded together. Which brings us to the how, the actual mechanics. How they managed to stitch two opposite ideas into one single addictive loop. Building this hybrid, this two-headed monster is one thing, but having a dating sim and an action game in the same app, that is not a strategy. That is just a folder with two different games in it. The game's real mechanical core, its masterstroke, is how it makes these two systems need each other. The game's architecture, its base design, is built on two loops that run at the same time. First, you have the romance loop. This is the first-person immersion, the deep character customization, the dynamic affection system. This is where you get the features that had content creators flustered. You can pet the characters, listen to their heartbeats, you can play dress up, you can go to a claw machine. This is the fantasy side. And then you have the combat loop, and this is a fully fledged real-time 3D ARPG. You are not just pressing a button and watching a cartoon, you have to actively dodge. You manage your skills, you build your stats using items called protocores. It is a real game. And now here's the link. This is the single brilliant line of code that makes the whole $650 million model work. Special attacks become stronger as your affection with a character increases. And that one mechanic, that is it. It completely reframes the entire player experience. It changes how you think about what you're doing. I mean, think about it, right? The combat grind, that boring, repetitive part of every ARPG at one point, fighting the same monsters over and over to get items, that is now reframed as a relationship building activity. Why? Because grinding combat is what gives you the resources to level up your memories. And those memories are the very things that unlock more of the romance story and more of the spicy scenes, if you know what I mean. And it works the other way too. Dating, spending time with the characters, texting them, going through the story, which in other games might just be considered fluff or side content, is now reframed as a power-up activity. Going on a date is not just a date, it is character progression. Texting your favorite guy back, that is min-maxing. So the grind stops feeling like a chore. The romance stops feeling like fluff. Each system gives the other one a purpose. It is a perfect symbiotic loop. They live together and help each other survive. And this is the loop that feeds directly into the game's economic engine, which is where the real genius and the real problem begins. This is how that clever design translates to $650 million. Because Paper Games wasn't just monetizing stats, they weren't just selling JPEGs of hot guys, they figured out how to monetize the plot itself. The game's gacha system, its slot machine, is called Wish, and you spend your currency to pull for memories, which are the in-game cards. Now these memories are a clever 3-in-1 product. They are your gear, they give you combat stats, they give you new combat skills, and they give you new, fully voiced, romantic story content. This is the stuff that 𝗖𝗍𝗆𝗆 called like crack.
Either through sweet, tender moments of longing, or otherwise, it feels like crack. For me, anyway. I really like the tension.
The intimate moments, the interesting scenarios, like shaving Zane's face, which, you know, most of us are enjoying. But the stats, the skills, that is not the real product. That is just the justification. The real hook is what is called the deeper lore. The free main story you play through, that is just the surface. That is just the free sample. The core twist of this game is that you, the player, have deep, pre-existing connections to all of these love interests from past lives or alternate timelines. They remember everything, but you don't. The game heavily implies that you're something like a god who forgot that she was a god, and this entire fragmented plot, the actual story, is delivered through the gacha system. The rarest, most high-value cards are called myth memories. These aren't cute what-if scenarios. They are the big lore drops. They are the explicit puzzle pieces that explain why these incredible, powerful men are so deeply, almost supernaturally devoted to you. Here's the perfect example, Zane. In the free main story, Zane is a cold doctor. He is serious, disciplined, kind of distant. That is the archetype. That is the trope. That is what you get for free. But when you pull his myth card from a limited time gacha banner and you get the real story, you find out he is actually a childhood friend. And that fatal heart condition your character has, you find out he dedicated his entire life to becoming the world's foremost cardiac surgeon for the sole purpose of one day being able to save you. And that is the emotional core. That is the reason for the romance, and it is locked behind the gacha. The gacha is transformed from a simple game of chance into a narrative tool booth. It is not "I hope I get lucky," it is "I have to pay the toll to find out what happens next." So players aren't just pulling for stats to beat a boss, they are pulling to find out why Zane is so cold. They are pulling to find out what Savior is hiding, and the result is an intense, plot-driven FOMO, a fear of missing out, not on a new weapon, but on the story, on the answers. This is the exact thing people pointed out as unfair. The emotional payoff is the product, but this is only part one of the economic engine, because how the game gets you to pull on that tool booth, that is a whole other layer of design. So you are pulling for the answers, right? That is where the next layer of this design kicks in. And now on the surface, the gacha system, it is complex, but it feels fair, or at least predictable. It has a 70 pull pity. That just means you are guaranteed a 5-star card, or before your 70th pull. It has a 50-50 system. You have a 50% chance to get the new card, but if you lose and get an old one, your next 5-star is guaranteed to become the new one. And most importantly, all of this carries over. Your pity counts, your guarantee, they don't reset when the banner ends. This builds perceived fairness. It feels less like a slot machine and more like a system you can plan for. A last pull feels like an investment for the future, but that is just the surface. The true multiplier, the part of the design that really concentrates the spending, is a very simple, very sharp rule. Combat teams are 100% LI specific. LI just means love interest, and in simple terms, you can't use a Zane card in a team with Savior. A Raphael card does nothing for your Silas team. And this one rule, it forces the players to choose. It forces you to pick a man, or maybe two. This is what I call the forced monogamy of the resource system. You have to funnel all of your resources, all your leveling potions, all of your protocores for stats, and all of your gacha pulls into that one character set of cards. Now this has a very powerful, very clever effect on the player's wallet. On one hand, it makes about 80% of the game's gacha banners totally irrelevant to you. A new Savior card is out, you're a Zane main, well, you don't care. You can skip it. It feels like you're saving money. But when a banner for your chosen LI arrives, that FOMO, that fear of missing out, is magnified to an extreme. It's no longer, "Oh, that is a cool new card." It becomes the only banner that advances your entire account. It is the only one that gives you combat power. It is the only one that gives you the story. This strategy, it concentrates a player's entire saved out premium currency and their willingness to spend real money into these intense, predictable, and extremely high revenue spikes for each character. Is how you get people who knows that it's gacha to spend a lot of money trying and failing to get one specific card. It is a very, very smart design. And when you combine this powerful engine with the high quality product it is attached to, you get a game that isn't just competing in the market, it is sitting on a brand new, uncontested throne. And that entire very sharp economic engine, it works. It is viable, as they say. It's viable because it is built on top of a product that is frankly in a class of its own. This whole success really rests on two final factors. One, the technology. Papergames made a very high risk 4+ year bet. They poured research and development into creating this 3D first-person tech. They correctly guessed that the Otome market, this group of players, was absolutely starved for AAA production values, the highest level of quality, like a big budget blockbuster game. They were tired of 2D pictures, and Papergames gave them something that is so disgustingly well made.
Love and Deepspace embodies what a mobile game company wishes what they can achieve. It is a disgustingly well-made mobile game.
Something, as we saw, people were comparing to actual AAA games. And the second factor is a deep, authentic understanding of its target audience. This game was designed from the ground up to be a safe space for its female player base. And the single best, most illustrative example, the one tiny detail that tells you everything you need to know about their strategy, is in the game's Remind Me tool. It has your daily tasks, your in-game chores, and it also includes an optional period cycle tracker. Now think about that for a second. A male-dominated development development studio would almost never even think of that. If they did, they would probably call it unnecessary or just be too embarrassed to even bring it up in a meeting, right? This one small feature, it signals with zero ambiguity, zero confusion, exactly who this game is for. It is a for us by us level of understanding, and that is how you build a profound or deep brand loyalty. You show your audience that you actually genuinely see them. This combination of high tech and high loyalty, that is why Love and Deepspace can get away with its gacha. It is exactly what 𝗖ici's review pointed out. The game can be stingy, it can be predatory. He noted the VIP system cost around $700 just for the first tier, because as 𝗖ci concluded, there is just no alternative. It has no true competition.
While Otome games have always existed with a niche audience, nothing like this has been achieved before. It can get away with being stingy and predatory, because there's just no alternative to it at the moment. It's able to expand its influence unchecked without any competition.
If you're a player and you want this specific experience, a 3D first-person AAA quality Otome ARPG, where else do you go? You go here. That is the list. So Paper Games hasn't just captured the market, they have completely reset it. The 2D niche Otome game, that is a relic now. It is a thing of the past. Love and Deepspace has set a new multi-billion-dollar standard. And now, every other competitor, all of the other industry giants, are the ones being forced to chase. So now, what you're looking at with Love and Deepspace is what's called a paradigm shift. That is just a fancy way of saying it changed the game. The rules are different now. Its $650 million success story is a perfect case study, a perfect example of a strategy that was executed flawlessly. Let's just recap it, right? 1, they correctly identified a massive, high-spending market that was undeserved, a group of people that nobody else was making high-quality games for. 2, they built that high-quality, high-investment, hybrid product, that fusion of a dating sim and an action RPG that nobody else was making. And 3, most critically, they engineered a monetization model, a way to make money that tied its gacha system directly to the player's emotional investment in the plot. The game's challenge now, it completely changes. Their problem isn't acquisition anymore. It is not about getting new players. They have already done that. They have captured this massive high-spending audience. Their new challenge is retention, how to keep them. They now have to maintain what is called a grueling content treadmill. They have to keep putting out new cards, new stories, new events, just to feed the massive audience they have created. An audience that is in the hole and needs their next fix of lore and angst. They have to do all of that, all while fending off the inevitable wave of competitors. The other big companies who are right now almost certainly rushing to copy the revolutionary formula that Love and Deepspace just proved makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Which leaves us with that narrative gacha model, locking the most critical story, the lore behind a slot machine. It is clearly effective. The numbers prove that, but it does fundamentally change how a player gets to access the emotional core of the game. So I'm curious what you think. Is this a fair price to pay for a free-to-play experience that has this level of quality, or does it cross a line in monetization? Let me know your perspective in the comments below, but that is all from me, 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗆𝗵𝗁, and I will see you in the next one. Like and sub. Cheers!